Make sure you've watched the previous chapter on the inspector before going any further. When you click on a MIDI track, a lot of the inspector icons and buttons are the same as an audio track. Right-click on the inspector and make sure that everything is selected before continuing. We could either reselect these two or choose Show All to save a few clicks. This whole top section is the same, with the exception of the input transformer, which we'll discuss in Level 4. The lower section is different though. The in corresponds to your MIDI input and the output can be set to a MIDI out or a virtual instrument. You can set your MIDI channel and edit the instrument the MIDI track is connected to if one is selected in the output dropdown. Bank and program changes are set here. If you choose to use the drum editor, you can pick, edit, or create your own drum maps here. You can load up MIDI track presets by clicking on the button here and selecting an option from the list. VST expression was discussed earlier in this level, along with note expression. The MIDI modifiers section allows you to change a whole bunch of things that seemed complicated in the past. There's a transpose, velocity shift, which adds or subtracts velocity from your notes, and the velocity compression, which compresses the velocity based on a factor you set. For example, if I choose a factor of 3/4, then the velocities will be at 3/4 of their original value. Length compression adjusts the length of your notes. A value of 2:1 means that all note lengths will be doubled. 1:2 means half length. Random allows you to randomize position, pitch, velocity, or length. For example, you can choose position and then set the left value to -10 and the right value to 20. This will alter the position of your notes between these two values. This is great for giving MIDI parts that realistic feel. Range lets you filter out notes or velocities so you won't hear them. It can also limit notes or velocities so that notes that fall out of the range you specify will be limited to that range. For example, if you set the velocity limit with minimum set to 1 and maximum set to 100, then any notes over 100 will be set to 100. Anything under 100 will be left alone. The Insert section lets you add MIDI plugins. The Send section allows you to add MIDI plugins and then send them out different outputs with different MIDI channels. The MIDI fader section looks almost the same as the channel section on an audio track with a few things missing. Everything else is the same though. Next is the notepad, but you already know about this from the last chapter. The user panel will be discussed in Level 3 of this series, and the quick controls section was discussed in the last chapter. If your MIDI track is connected to a VST instrument, then it will show up as a section in the MIDI track inspector. This allows you to quickly access the instrument to make changes. The group tracks and effects tracks are the same for audio tracks, so there's no need to go into them. The folder track is interesting. If you have audio tracks with a folder track, you can see those tracks and their inspector information by clicking here. You can mute, solo, record arm, and monitor either the selected item in the folder or the whole folder. When you record enable a folder track, all of the tracks within that folder become record enabled. This is a great way to record all of your drum tracks with one click. The marker track lets you quickly jump between the markers. The video track and transpose track both have a notepad. This is really handy for writing down information about the video files you're using and notes on any transpositions you may have made. There are some extra buttons here, but we'll look at those when we get into the chapters on Video Track in Level 4 and Transpose Track in Level 3. The Arranger track was explained in Level 1 of this series. The Signature and Tempo track will both show you the events within the track. For the Signature track, you'll see time signature changes, and for the Tempo track, you'll see tempo changes. You're able to edit the time signature and tempo events directly here. This saves you the time of having to go into other editors. And as per usual, the Ruler track has nothing in the inspector.